Good evening, Internet, and welcome to episode number 310 of the Comic Watchers Show. He's Chad, and I'm Matt, and this is our show about comics. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Our guest tonight, the one, the only, dude himself, Steve Rude, the man who needs no further introduction. Thank you, Steve, for joining us.
You're welcome. And as far as being the one and only, that's probably a good thing.
I hear you on that. Nobody's
I don't think the world can handle two of me.
Mats, so I understand. So, gosh, we're here tonight to talk about your Kickstarter for Nexus, the battle for Thuneworld, and Nexus has been going on for decades now, but there might be some newer readers, younger readers that are less familiar with the property. Can you give us a breakdown on it?
On what it's about?
Yeah.
Nexus is about. Well, let me talk about it in broad terms. When me and Baron started saying, we knew all the comics out there. We knew all the stuff Marvel and DC were doing because that's what we read. And then out of nowhere comes this book that wants to be published in Wisconsin. And the timing was good. It was mostly instigated by Baron, and we met with the two guys that wanted to publish it. We had a little presentation, and we showed them the first 13 pages of the original black and white book. And so we got a commitment. We got a commitment pretty much then and there to publishing this stuff. They wanted a superhero, so they got one. And from then on, it was we just worked really hard. We loved working hard, me and Baron. And we were so young. I was like 24, and he was like 30 something. And those were good days. And it just we got an editor. We got a serious lineup of serious people, and it started out small, and it was very intimate. It stayed intimate for the entire time. It wasn't until we went to First Comics, it became a little more rank and file, which is not as much fun, obviously. But those early days, as we were coming up with stuff together, Baron was much more in charge of it back then. I remember him. We went to a restaurant in Madison called Les Trois, and that was when you could spend $60 on a dinner and blow people away. Now it's a night out with coffee, maybe.
Maybe.
And we went in there early, like before the crowd came in, and Baron proceeded to tell me everything that he had planned for the book coming up. He talked about the Merc, I remember that, and things like that, and the secrets behind the stuff that he just invented himself at that time. So he passed it on to me, and I remember having a really good time. Baron was much more assertive back then, which I liked. He's kind of settled down a little bit since then, but I kind of wish he would go back to his assertive ways. But for those that haven't read the book, it's got science fiction in there. It's supposed to take place in 500 years in the future, which is probably not what we should have called it. It's more like 10 years in the future. I base my stuff on my influences, which is no surprise to anyone who becomes an artist. And those things, actually, I want to point out that everything that happened to me, that influenced me, where it all started, happened in 1966. And that was the year that Bruce Lee came out in Green Hornet. Star Trek came out. Space Ghost came out. And a couple other things that I can't think of right now. But, that was kind of a pivotal year for me. And so that's always the thing you look. I think you can trace back anything to a certain time period. And I was like 9 at the time in 66. But I kind of trace it back to that.
So what was the first maybe your first exposure to comic books and what made you say, I want to get into this line of work?
Well, I'm sure I didn't get around to thinking like I want to get into this until way later on. I mean, even when I graduated from high school, I was disorientated and I didn't know quite how to go about this. So my mom set me up downstairs in this freezing basement, and she took a board, an actual board, piece of wood board, and she put it up in some cinder blocks. And she gave me some typewriter paper and some ebony pencils and said, have fun. And I did. And I just doggedly got up every day. And I didn't know any other way except for just repetition. I love to copy pictures from my comics. So that's what I did. All my influences were copied at the time. So copied is a way that I still do things. But going back a long ways, my first exposure was by a friend of mine who bought all the comics from Marvel. That's why I got hooked on Marvel. And he had everything, so I just went over to his house to check out all this stuff. And one of them was Spider-Man. It was just so incredibly cool. It was the Romita era, and I just loved it. I was watching The Amazing Spider-Man last night, the movie. And one of the things I do when I watch movies these days, what happened to Chad?
Oh,
I'm here. No, I'm here.
Okay. So Chad and Matt. Okay, so what I do when I watch movies these days, because I'm now writing my own material, I pick apart everything that's wrong and everything that's right. And that's just kind of my nature going on automatic there. Like, for example, there was a scene where Peter Parker leaves his home and the very who was his name? Who was the guy that played the dad? That was what's his name, right?
Oh yeah, Martin Sheen.
Yeah, Martin Sheen. Yeah. Well, how miscast can you get? So it was him and Sally, and when Peter Parker leaves his home, he slams it so hard the window breaks, right? Well, I don't know about you guys, but when they miss little opportunities like this, it drives me nuts. And what they missed was a reaction from the damn parents.
Right.
I mean, you would kind of jump back just for a second or shake, but they had them standing totally stationary. The little things I pick up on that I guess people that get paid $1 million a script don't think of.
So, and that's actually interesting that you pick up on little things like that. My bigger complaint with that movie is how underwhelming the Lizard's debut is. He's just kind of running around through traffic. But when you and Mike Barron first debuted Nexus, it was kind of at the beginning of the 80s black and white indie boom. And, I was just a baby at that time, but I'm enough of an historian to know that it was definitely a time where Marvel and DC's hegemony was getting challenged by creators such as yourselves, and the black and white boom was sort of like the side door in to kicking them off their pedestal, so to speak. So tell us, if you would, a little bit about what it was like as a creator during that time, on the outside looking in, but definitely making some suits uncomfortable.
I think if anything, the suits just happened to notice something from left field that they weren't expecting, and really nobody was expecting. I was so young at the time, I didn't understand half of what I do now in life about life. Probably a good thing. I know we got noticed because the first book to come out, you might remember this, is Justice Machine from Mike Gustovich. And that came out as an oversized magazine. and it had a cover by John Byrne. And so when we would, back when we would, go to the stores and buy all the comics from the racks or whatever, this was all noticed very heavily by everyone. And the people that came right after that is us, the Nexus crew. And likewise, we got, a noted artist to do the covers, a couple of them. And I was all for that. But I remember lettering, and inking and penciling. And I told Barry one time, I said, it's not fair. You're getting more money than I am, and I'm doing 3 times your work. And I remember what he said, too. He goes, I think of myself as Stan Lee, Steve, or dude, or whatever he called me back then. And I deserve as much as I can get. Yeah, well, of course you would think like that. But I think he got what he wanted. I might have gotten a $5 raise per page or something. But I had no expenses back then, so I could do whatever I wanted. And I did. As far as dating goes and all that kind of stuff and going out to restaurants, and it was such a social scene back then. I loved it.
Oh, we do have a question from one of our viewers, so let me just pop it back up on the screen and we can see if we can. There we go. What was a study you did for a comic book story that really stuck with you or was deeply moving as an artist?
Would that be anything I've done?
I guess so. I mean,
okay. Well, I can tell you that there was a moment where Baron and I had done many issues by then, and by the time we got into first comics, we were under pressure for deadlines. And after, Baron, basically the routine was Baron would come over to my pad downtown with Madison and drop off the script. And he drew little pictures. He didn't write, he drew them. And apparently that was the way best for him. And one time we met downtown in a different area, like around Main Street. And he handed off a script to me. And I remember going into Subway to eat and to look this over. And as soon as I read it, I knew this was the best thing he ever wrote. And it was issue, I think 24 or 26. It was called Claiborne. And it was so intense, emotionally so intense, which is stuff I thrive on. The more intense it is, the better I like it. And that's what I try to do with my own stories. I've learned a lot in the last 5 years about how to do this thing called writing. And basically, I would say that everything you need to know is kind of buried inside of you to be able to write. So people that have lived something of a life should be able to, when they reflect all the bad things that prevent people from learning how to write, like negative thoughts and stuff. They actually more people have the capacity to write than they think they do. And when I realized, my problem wasn't thinking up ideas or thinking of plots or great things that happen in the stories. It was dialogue. So what I did was I had Janelle print off some Star Trek scripts off the web, and I would read these, and they were just perfect. They were so sparse. Nobody went on for a long period of time explaining the technobabble stuff that the other shows would go into much more later on. Like, what did they learn from this show? Nothing. But it's anything creative is a fascinating project. You guys obviously do something very, very creative. This podcast, for one, I mean, you've got to separate yourself from everyone out there, and make things count, because that's how you survive, and that's how you get a rep, and that's how you go up in the world, is by doing something a little different than everyone else. But the ability to write comes with. I don't want to naively say practice, but that's really what it comes down to. is just thinking about it all the time. Like when I watch these movies, I'm dissecting every single thing. Um, and everything that's great, I pick up on that too. So that's really exciting for me.
So, kind of give us, overview, summary of what the Battle of Thuneworld is about.
Well, when we decided to start Rude Dude up again and start self-publishing, which is unbelievably expensive, we lost a lot of money in that first book, The Coming of Gormando. But it was a masterpiece to me in terms of production and coloring and presentation, all that kind of stuff. And I was so proud of it. And I worked so hard on making sure the script worked. And from there, it's just a continuation of that story. Everything that comes from me from now on is going to be chronologically going back to the issue before it. So when Thuneworld came along, there were tie-ins to Gormando, but not many. But what did I think of that? Okay, one of the things I wanted to do that the whole issue would revolve around is I've always wanted to do Judah Maccabee as Samson. So if you recall that book where he's taken in all those tanks, that came directly from Samson and Delilah with Victor Mature. So you get what you do is you start assembling all these things. Well, I want to do this. I've always wanted to do that. This would be really cool. And then you kind of dovetail it together, and that's how I work. Everyone's got a different way to work based on their mentality. That's I think the funnest way I can work. And then you've got to get into specifics of little details. And another thing that they rarely do in TV is there's all these peripheral characters that are in the story, and they don't do anything with them. Well, I wanted to make sure that every single person that was in there that made some kind of appearance at least had a moment of personality, because otherwise you rob people of the potential of little incidents that could be funny or scary or whatever. And I've always noticed that when I see a movie or a TV show, actors really complain that they don't want to do parts that are like 5 minutes long or even less than that. But in fact, those little parts, if you know how to really put it together and really act the part and really put out an outstanding performance, you can be the star of the whole show in that 5 minutes or 1 minute.
Sure.
That's fascinating to me. So you steal the scene by virtue that you're not in it as much as the other guys. So it's reverse thinking that I like.
And are there any of those, background minor characters that, you would like to one day maybe explore more within the series?
Well, you never know. So far, what my conscience has been telling me to do is bring back old characters that never really got fleshed out and that people probably liked a lot. So it's fascinating to go back, grab these characters that Baron and I invented and put, it's like, where are they now, right? Well, we're going to answer that. And that came up more in the one I'm working on now, Return to Earth, which is a continuation of the Battle for Thuneworld. But the real test is the only real test with all the opinions out there that take place is, did you like it? Did you feel motivated? Did you feel excited? Did you feel like it was life and death? If I can get across the feeling of life and death, that's a huge succeed in my eyes. Maybe the biggest of all.
So how much background knowledge or lore does your casual reader need to have about Nexus in order to get into Battle of Thuneworld?
Well, the good thing is I'm very aware that there's dozens of people that are going to be coming in cold. So if you notice, I always try to throw in a little backstory that kind of sums up everything. Look back in Gormando and look at Thuneworld, and you'll see that I slipped those things in. Just again, we're reacquainted.
Right. Okay. So we've actually got a comment here from a viewer, or a question, I should say. Dave of Yum says that he loves the newspaper layout of the Battle of Thuneworld. Steve, do you have a favorite comic strip or one that informed your book?
Oh, that's a great question. The whole comic strip thing, I can tell you where that started. It's the very first thing that I could recite going back in time is my dad. He would tell me about how much he loved this Prince Valiant strip when he was growing up. And at the time, it was in the late 60s, 70s. We were looking at John Cullen Murphy. And to me, it was deadly boring. The art was kind of scratchy and the stories didn't feel involved. When I eventually got back to review the stories that Hal Foster did, it was the greatest single accomplishment in the comic strip by anyone on Earth. He was literally so far above everyone else. This historical things that he knew about it put in, it virtually read as real life. So that's the yardstick everyone, if they dare attempt it, would try to do. So the good thing is that we have all these examples throughout history, and I always go back in the past when I want to find inspiration to where to go with something. It's all there to be learned from. And I don't think a lot of people take advantage of that. I mean, there's like a million Kirby fans, but I don't know anyone that's deliberately gotten something from him that's a drawing mannerism or a inspirational inspirational jump point. I don't see it, so I wonder why that is. The comic strip idea. Part 2 came from the time that I got a call from Mark Chiarello. And he says, hey, we're doing this thing called Wednesday Comics. And we're reviving the strips. The old strips were like in a newspaper format with at least like 7 or 8 pages connected to it. And I was supposed to do something, I think the New Gods, but it fell through. And they offered me Commandy, and I said, no thanks. So a couple of years later, and this is kind of a tell with everything that goes on in publishing. They Mark Chiarello couldn't keep it going because for whatever reason, and there's always the pretty standard reasons why, something gets canceled. Mm-hmm. And so that's when you're working under somebody. If I were to start something where I was not working under somebody, but being in control with everything, it would just be a matter of money if I could keep it going. And the whole strip thing came about in another funny way. Comic books came from strips. And there was a time when the strips were read by everyone on the earth plus Aunt Harriet's dog. And they loved it. So if everyone read those things in a yesteryear moment, what if somebody brought that back in the same large format and gave it a shot, try to revive it? I wasn't under any kind of the thumb of United Feature Syndicate or anything else that was having control of the comics back then. And besides, the comic books, the comic strips run by the syndicates all went to hell. No adventure strip, I think, is really grabbing people, and certainly not like it used to be from a long time ago. But that was a thing back then, and we know, guys, things change, whether we like it or not. But there's always going to be someone like me that says, if everyone read those things back then, and those begot comic books, why not try to revive the idea of the comic strip? And I just thought it kind of all fell into place from there. Mm-hmm. Did that answer that or not?
Oh, I think so.
Yeah. Just checking.
So, in your art process, do you still work traditional? Have you kind of moved to digital, or do you kind of hybrid, or what is your preferred method, I guess?
Well, there's only one, so that kind of narrows it down. In my studio is everything but a computer.
Hmm.
So everything I have is, what they so-called traditional. It's like animation; they call it flat, or that's kind of a joke within the business, but or paper or whatever. And then the 3D stuff comes along. Just because those things come along doesn't mean you have to use them.
Right.
Now, most people don't think like that. They think of, well, I'm not going to get work if I don't come over to the dark side and start getting in line with everyone else who's doing it. Well, I don't think like that. Thank God I don't think like that, because I'm devoted entirely to the process of all the things that people that work with paint and pencil and canvas have done for a billion years. And that's where my life is. That's where I love to be and figure things out, because you're always figuring things out. The learning process never stops in life, literally to your last breath, if you're fairly healthy and sound of mind, which I'm still working on.
Well, speaking of the learning process, what have you learned over the years that you kind of wish you knew when you started, or what would you tell a younger version of yourself, given the experience that you've had?
Well, I wouldn't tell myself anything really, and that's part of the thing that surprises people. I mean, one, if my younger self was trying to listen to my older self, I would have listened anyway, because I don't listen to anybody back then. I think that's impossible to really give an accurate answer to, because everything about life is incremental. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, that makes a week, and then there's a month, and then there's this, and pretty soon the decades go by, and you're looking at a point in your life where, because of all the changes that take place in that time, inevitably, you've got to find a way to stand out like you did when things were easy and fun, like in the 80s. You've got to find a way to let the people know what you're doing, and then decide if they like it. And if they like it, and I'm pretty assured they will, I've just launched them into a world so compelling and exciting and different that keeps them coming back.
Okay. We've got another question from a listener, and it says the inside in the instruction that you give on Saturday's comic book class has been a really huge personal lifeline for me. Is there someone who was a mentor like this for you?
The mentor thing was yeah, there was. I mean, in the early 80s, I was in art school, and whereas there was no memorable teachers that came about from my first art school in Milwaukee School of the Arts, when I moved down to Madison, to the Madison Area Technical College, there was. And I remember at some point that this particular teacher, pulling me aside, I think he figured out enough about me that he could say with some assurance that I was going to be one of his 12. This guy, Mr. Camplin, had taught for 19 years. He came from New York and was one of the original artists behind the famous artist course by Al Doran. He was one of the many guys that would be behind the scenes and critique all the work that came in. So he knew everything. And he said I was going to be one of the guys that made it. And at the time, that was nice to hear, but I don't know how anyone can tell that. But
Sure.
If I were to be in his position now, I could easily tell who's going to make it. And that's going to be people that do the work without having to be told they need to do the work. They just do it. Just do it.
Yeah.
So aside from that, the early 90s or the mid 90s, mid 80s and 90s, there was a lot of painting workshops that I attended. And you paid $1,000, or was it 500 plus airfare, I guess. You paid a lot of money for a week's instruction from painters that you handpicked to teach you what they knew. So you could in theory learn it on your own. And it really was a boost for me to have that instruction. But mentors, the other people that I could list off were just people that I met for a weekend, like when I would go up to see one of the illustrators that I was crazy about, who worked during the 1940s and was still alive. So I would call these guys up when you could still call people up, and actually get them on the phone and say, "Hey, I'm Steve Root. I love you. Love what you do. I want to come over and see you. Can I do that?" And they say, "Sure." So I get on a plane and fly into Ridgeport, Connecticut, and meet this guy that's everything I could ever imagine being. And I spent the day with him, which is, I think, just enough time. And he gets a chance to meet a young guy who is dead set on becoming the same thing that he did back when he was in his 30s and 40s. That is utterly determined to make his mark in the field, even when the field of illustration was totally different by the time I got into it. He worked for the women's magazines. I worked for comic books, because all the cool things that were happening at the time I got into the biz were in comic books, like covers. And I was one of the few guys painting his covers from the very beginning.
Mhm.
And that was because I wanted to exert my potential as an illustrator on top of just, drawing sequential art in comics. So it was just endlessly fascinating to see that, when you look back on the decades and kind of decipher them and what took place here and why it worked out or why it didn't work out. That's what I mean about there's an overall arc, but there's also within that, there's all these changes. And they can be anything they want. They can be good and they can be bad. And what you've got to do is go within yourself and take yourself out of the current situation, what you're being influenced by, and want to become an image artist just because they make so much money, and figure out where you're going to steer your wheel. And it didn't happen right away, but it did happen. And I realized I kind of got my hint from Paul McCartney.
Mm.
When you get a Paul McCartney record, you want it to sound like Paul McCartney, and he can go in whatever direction he wants, but it's got to sound like him. Otherwise, it's not him. It's electronica or something like that. So you never want to morph too much in one direction, where you're not recognizable as the person you bought the albums from in the first place.
Right.
So I think about that in what people want from like Jack Kirby. I always wanted really good Jack Kirby stories. Whip it. And that's all I wanted. I wanted them to be continually good. Excellent stuff. Jack kept it up for 40 years, but most people couldn't even do that. And that's I think I might have an advantage over people that think that you can only stick in there for 15 years or so years and give it your best and then slide a little bit. Well, that's like the worst thing you can tell me is, Steve, you have to start sliding now, because to me that's a living death.
Sure.
If you're able to maintain your enthusiasm, which is really not that hard, and go back to your sources and remember why you're doing this in the first place, you're going to continue to do all the things you're supposed to do when you're in the field, which is have fun, do good work, and grow from it.
So, as the question indicated. Tell us a little bit more about the artistic instruction on Saturdays. Is this something that you do on a regular basis, or and how did that begin?
Well, slowly at first, and at first I thought, what am I doing here? I'm trying to entertain people, but I'm not an entertainer. Well, I'm a little off kilter as far as my personality and delivery goes, which is probably a good thing. I think what the Saturday live stream at 1:30 on Saturdays has evolved into is getting a viewpoint that you don't get from anyone else. Because I'm pretty unique. I'm not like everyone else. I'm not rank and file, and I'm not the hoi polloi. So using that is just a common denominator. And since that's what people bring up all the time, you say things a little different from everyone else. That's part one. The other part is thinking about what they want to see. Now, when you guys go into when you go looking at a podcast, you expect certain things, right? You expect to be informed, enlightened, entertained, and you want to see an artist do art. If a writer was up there, he'd have to recite, Shakespeare or something, or the Bible to sound really smart. But artists can do anything. We can pick any subject of any kind. And honestly, what I'd like to be doing on this live stream is not what people want to see. What I want to do is watercolor studies from different great artists over the centuries. And on occasion I do that, and on occasion I get over to the oil painting area and do that, because that's what I would really like to be doing. But it has to be a compromise, a half and half of all those things. So you give them a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and it's actually fascinating to see what the numbers that come in from these live streams. Some of them, they were normally about like 600 views. That just kind of stayed there. Now they have a freakish way of going up and up and up, and some of them just stall at the 500 point like they used to. Others, depending on the subject, like a Rockwell study or a Frazetta thing, they go way up, as you could expect. So that's just an encouraging thing for getting the numbers in and getting the views, and also at the same time introducing all these things. I mean, if I'm unknown, there's chances are that these great artists that I like might be unknown too. Some people are going to say, "Who's Kirby? Who's Frazetta?" Well, here he is, and this is what he does. So I love that part of it. So that's what we do on Saturdays.
Awesome.
And this campaign is on BackerKit, and I'm sure that you've done Kickstarter before. Was there a reason why you decided to go with BackerKit
over something else, or the many things that are out there?
Over Kickstarter, yeah.
Yeah, well, apparently it's better to not have all your eggs in one basket. So if something's out there that can amplify one way of raising the pledges, why wouldn't you do that, right? And because Janelle is so on top of things, and her whole life is about rather than what she'd like to be doing, which is taking care of the house and the dogs and stuff. She's forced to spend all her time like a slave, chained to a drawing board or a keyboard to find out all the things that are going to benefit the cause of Rude Dude. So she selflessly goes so many hours. Every day she probably puts in a minimum of 12 hours. I don't do that. If I put in 10, I'm good.
Has there, something how do you feel about the crowdfunding method? I mean, as a way of, launching projects?
We have no choice. If it's the money is not going to come from us, we're not going to self-generate anything. So in the case of this is kind of a symbiotic relationship between the fan and the artist. I don't like the idea for begging for money, which is what it really is. But that's what it comes down to. And people find all these ways to disguise what it really means, but that's what it comes down to. You are dependent on the kind of campaign you announce and go about to get more of the votes or the pledges than you would ordinarily. So it's a constant PR upward battle of getting more and more and more, so you can be freer, and not break even on a book. You can actually make something from it. So we try to reinforce this all the time about the reality of what we're doing here. You guys, the more you give us, we can give you extra this and extra that, and we can add two more, 100 more pages onto the book, because all these things, they kind of cost money.
Sure.
So that's how it works. And I like competition. I think, the U.S. is great about always fostering competition. And that's a good thing, because people have no time to get complacent. They have no time to rest on their laurels, as they say. And they can't get lazy if they want to be on top of something. So everyone, the only time things fail is when people get lazy. And we can see that in so many businesses. And when you do that, you're ripe to be taken over by the younger guy, who's like you were when you were 20 years old.
Hungry.
And sorry.
Oh, I was just commenting. Hungry. The younger guys.
Yeah, the younger guys. Well, that's always the way it's going to work. And when you start off and you're 20 years old, you're the youngest people in the entire business, and that's great fun, because everything's so open and open to making a difference. And I always like the idea that I'm making a difference by the kind of work that I do, the quality of it, or lack of. But I always am real big on. I'm so excited about the stories that literally I could go for the rest of 3 lifetimes and probably not exhaust the story potentials for Nexus.
Now, excuse me, just to clarify, is Baron working with you on this particular Nexus outing, or is it all you?
It's all me. We kind of worked out this deal because we were getting divergent views on where to take the strip, and they were quite divergent. We just thought, well, I'll do my thing and you do your thing. So Baron's got his own Nexus book out there, his own publishing thing, and I've got Rude Dude, which is exclusively Nexus.
Okay.
So we have a chance to amiably do separate things from something that was once done by 2 very close people. I mean, that's one of the changes that you'll note as time goes on through the decades. Everything changes, and you don't know what they're going to be because it hasn't happened yet. But if it does happen, people believe in a thing about if it happens, it's for a reason. Depends on how smart you are or how superstitious you are. Do things really happen for a reason? Well, for the most part, I have to believe life is kind of looking for a balancing act. Mm-hmm. And if you're too far balanced on one side, it's going to be tend to turn into a kind of a chaotic environment. So I think what life wants is to have enough of a balance to make sure everyone has a fair shot at something. And I like that thinking, because that's the old American way of ingenuity, is to have a chance to do what you want, work hard at it, and if you find yourself in a position where you're not only entertaining them but changing their lives based on the philosophy of the work you do, can it get much better than that?
Right on.
kind of a two-part question. What do you feel is the biggest change in the industry since you started in it, and where, in your opinion, do you think it's headed?
I think it's headed toward independent publishing
Okay.
because from what I understand, and the sparse money they're even offering comic book artists these days, everything has changed. Everything. So the lack of page income, the fact that I think that these companies are basically involved in redoing everything they've ever tried in the past, but this time it's going to stick, right? This time we're going to have a new 800 or the new DC 500 or whatever that crap is, and people like me aren't beholden to that. We're free. We can do anything we want, and hopefully it's going to be of the kind of things companies would do if they weren't taken over by lawyers in corporate interests.
Bean counters.
Yeah, the industrial complex, right? Military complex.
Go ahead, Chad.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay. So I was just going to ask, you've been a pretty independent creator for the majority of your career, like 95% of it is, and clearly that's the way you see things continuing to head. Do you consider yourself maybe in league with the same class as somebody like Dave Sim or Matt Wagner, who kind of led that independent charge and can now kind of look back and say, hey, we started that?
Yeah, we're all kind of in the same boat, and that's why we connect and get along so well. I just saw Matt recently. I haven't seen him in 30 years. It was so nice to see him.
Oh, how wonderful.
Yeah, it was just great. But yeah, we all came from the same independent spirit. And we've all dipped our toes into the waters of DC and Marvel. And that was a lot of fun, but I think eventually, with all the changes that I keep talking about going on, because nothing lasts forever, and you're beholden to corporate thinking that I have a hard time with sometimes, because it's not about the art or the quality, it's about legalities, which I can't stand. I eventually will always go back to the place where I'm most needed, and in this case, it's Nexus.
Well, okay. Like it. Oh, go ahead, Chad.
I was going to say we have another comment from. It says, as a member of Steve's Patreon account, I've been able to get some sneak peeks into the new Nexus work. Any insight you can share with us? Also, you build the coolest robots.
Yeah, well, thanks. Those robots are actually very hard for me to come up with. Some things are easy, and like buildings and maybe vehicles like cars, but other things like thinking of original characters and costumes, you have to be very, very aware that you're not repeating yourself. And if you are, that little buzzer will go off and say, no, just getting too close to something else. I don't know what it is, but I know it's something. Let's see. Let's see. The insights and what's going to go on. Well, first, everything's a continuation from the book before it. So that's important. The second thing is, when you're doing a story, the way I've learned to think about it is, if you have any situation going on and you don't complicate it in some way that makes it just a bunch of people just talking and there's no consequences from it, you literally have to look at it as this page here is a stepping stone to something taking place later on. And you can be really subtle about it, or you can be overt about it. But I would say that the yardstick is always the readership. First, it's yourself. You know what you've done. You know if you've really come through on yourself or not. That's number one. But second thing is the reader's comments. And whereas we don't have anything like what we used to have with letter columns and people writing in, we used to get hundreds of letters at Capitol in its first and things like that. And that's one of the things I'm trying to bring back in the big hardcover Nexus volumes is a letters page. But it's hard to get letters out of people. And that's something I want to reinforce all day, every day is send in what you think, just like it used to be, because there's no reason why that should have gone the way of the dodo.
Right.
These things are just as important now as they were back when they were a prominent feature in all comic books. So if I'm in charge of this, I'm going to tell them I want to do a letters page, and I want you to write in. And so, but we need a lot more comments than we're getting right now.
There's another, let's see. I watched you hang out with her and her flaming carrot.
Oh, you mean, what's his name? What's the flaming carrots guy name? Yeah, Bob Bird. He's the funniest guy. Yeah, he's so funny. Hang out with her and her flaming carrot. So that must have been the girl that Bob Bird was with. She was a delight.
Yes, Bob Bird.
Yeah, and his better half. I think she was the girl I talked to, but see, I don't talk to just the guys. The girls are there too, and I don't think you should ignore them because every other dummy does that, and I don't want to do that. So I start asking them questions about what they do. And if you're not averse to listening to people, they're going to tell you things that they wish they could do all the time, but the stupid guys in comics, the males, never think to talk to the girls. Well, of course, I do the opposite of everyone else. So the things I find out about the girls' lives are insights into amazing things that had I never asked, I would never find out.
Do you continue to do shows, or are you doing any upcoming events?
Well, the only one that's going to be for sure is the Dragon Con because they invited me. And comic artists now should be asking for money. So if all these, if the amount to solicit these celebrities is like probably 20 grand to 30 grand, I think they can spare some money for the comic book artists, which is supposed to be what this is all about anyway. Mm-hmm. So ask for a fee. If they really want you, they'll pay it. And it's probably a drop in the bucket compared to what they do with celebrities, which I guarantee we know it is.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's the only one. I don't really like doing shows. I'd rather, at this point in my life, in my late 60s, I just want to stay home and work. I love to sit there at the drawing board and what's next? Janelle says you need to do this and do some more drawings for this. And then I do an occasional commission when I have to, if the bread isn't coming in to the point where it's going to be survival money. I'll have to do those. But all that takes away from Nexus, which is what I want to be doing. Mm-hmm. If I had it exactly the way I wanted it, and I have a really good life. I mean, it's pretty ideal when you think about it. It would be just having to drop the things that interfere with the work on Nexus, the writing, the drawing, the inking, all the things it takes to put together a book, which is a lot. And it's a lot of money, as you guys well know.
For sure.
Yeah.
Most definitely. So we're coming down to the end of our show, and we like to play a game of top five, and we thought we might ask you about your top five cosmic characters this go around, since Nexus is himself a cosmic character. We thought it.
Well, does this have to be Nexus? Because my tastes go a little beyond Nexus.
Oh, sure.
Can it be anybody?
We're not limiting it.
Okay, so I can talk about any character that's affected me in a big way.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the first is going to be Jack Kirby. When Jack Kirby had a chance before he got before he got cut off, literally like having his arm cut off, and he couldn't do the new guides anymore. One of the biggest mistakes ever done in comics. Not the first, not the last, but he had characters in there that I learned profundities from, very profound things that affected my viewpoint on the big picture of life. So there's that, and that's something that I think is always in the back of my mind. How can I mean, I have a pretty heavy sense of philosophy in drama in the way I think. So what I want to do is really mirror what the greats have done for me. And I always go back to the early Marvel comics in the 60s, when I was reading Captain America and Spider-Man and all those things that were unbelievably well done. If you compare the things done today, I think what you're looking at is watered down versions ever since that go into the here and now about things they're trying to do that are never really as good as a 15-cent comic compared to a $5 comic.
Right on. All right, so Kirby, you've got Kirby at number 1. How about number 2?
Well, lately, this is not in chronological order because I'm just kind of picking and choosing from what I'm inspired by now. Those Prince Valiant strips, they're unbelievable. If you want to look at the best of the best, where there's not even a close second, get the reprints of Prince Valiant, hopefully in black and white or a good color volume, and it'll change your thinking about everything that is possible in a comic strip, because there's no such thing as running out of ideas.
Right.
That's impossible based on the mind that's is challenged to think of the ideas in the first place. So there's Prince Valiant, of course. If we were to step over to animation, that would be my cartoon shows that were basically all designed by Alex Toth. Alex was nuts. We all know that. But how often do we find that genius is connected with bizarre personal behavior and total dysfunction dealing with humanity? That was good old Alex. I was just talking to a guy today that worked during those days. He's 98 years old.
Oh God.
And I was talking to him about the old HB days because he worked with Alex at HB, and he goes, I never saw Alex smile. Tells you a lot about somebody, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Love what
Definitely.
you do, but don't let the world know, I guess.
So who else? You're probably asking who else? A Magnus Robot Fighter felt real to me, and if I have to list anything that I want to put my stamp on, it's a comic like that. Same goes for the other stuff I just mentioned. They feel real to me, and when it feels real, it literally feels like life and death within a bunch of pages that probably add up to about 20 pages that are in color on newsprint, and the stories are so good, and the art is so matched with the writing that you're looking at something that any movie can do, any TV show can do, any book can do, any radio show can do. So comics absolutely have their place when it comes for competing for all the things that make up any great story. And I'm proud to be in the business.
All right.
Well, we're happy to have you in the business. Thank you so much for your decades of service to the art of comics, the art and science of comics, as it were. So,
yeah, it's there's really no limitations on this stuff. There's no chains or anything that weigh you down and make you think like something can't be done. I just happen to think that I don't believe in the words in can't and don't.
Right.
So that liberates me from like at least 80% of them out there that think they can't do something. So you want to be free like that in your thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I get it and I love it. and I'm here for it. So,
Would you like to give a final pitch for the campaign, which I know it probably has about just over a week left on it?
Yeah, I'd love to, but I think the best thing I can do, being the smart guy that I am, I'm going to turn you over to Gino Ginelli.
No, please don't.
I'll take my leave just temporarily, okay? She's going to get into the nitty gritty with you.
Please don't.
Go.
Hi. So the Backer Kit campaign has it ends on April 25th. April, is it the 25th? Yeah, the 25th. And then less than a week later, we're launching on Kickstarter, and we're launching on Kickstarter going through May 14th. So we're doing both, just not simultaneously. So
okay, I love it.
Yeah, and we launched on Backer Kit first because they have some new features where they directly connect with Patreon, and we were able to unlock and do some special things and unlimited quantities for Patreon that we can't offer on Kickstarter. So it felt more fair to offer unlimited stuff first and then the rest to Kickstarter.
Right on.
So that's what's going on there. I think we're about 56,000, which is about break even right now. So no profits to be made here, but we're going to end up with an awesome book. We have an awesome designer working on it. Thank goodness it's another book I don't have to work on. And Steve is going to come back and save me.
No, he saved me. Yeah. So this is the life that we have at the present moment. I want people out there, no matter what age they are, to remember that we are all on borrowed time. We're not guaranteed much time. 80 years, maybe 90 if we're lucky. I think the only sane way to think about it is you have this time to do something with your life. And when but you can't do that until you find out what it is. Otherwise, you're spinning your wheels. And we know a lot of people, don't we, guys, that still have no idea what they want to do, and they're in their 50s, right?
Yep.
If you believe you're here for a purpose, then you are obligated by life itself, by having a life in the first place, to pursue something that will make the world a better place with you than without you.
Right on. Very well said. Well, thank you, Steve Rude, for hanging out with us tonight. The comic is Nexus, the Battle for Thuneworld, and it is backing on Backer Kit right now. Chad.
And we'll continue to follow it on Backer Kit, and when it moves over to Kickstarter on our weekly crowdfunder roundup.
Absolutely, we will.
Well, your contributions to our causes are certainly of benefit to everyone. So we can only appreciate what you've done for us to get the word out.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that. It's all Chad. he puts in the elbow grease on that one.
I think it's more than that.
But we are all in this thing together, man.
Well, good for you.
We'll be
You've
back
got a
tomorrow
purpose.
night.
Yeah, you guys have your purpose, don't you? I mean, just maybe it's something beyond just the podcast, but that alone it involves a lot of responsibility.
Oh, sure. We didn't get to 310 episodes on dumb luck.
No, I think that would be improbable if you did.
Indeed.
So thank
Chad,
you.
what's next for our show.
Tomorrow night we have Elliot Kalin. We're going to be talking Barbarian Behind Bars and probably some Harley Quinn.
Awesome. Love to hear it. Well, Steve Rude, thank you so much for stopping by. And until next time, folks, keep out there, keep doing good in the world. Support local comic book stores, support local art, local music, local. Just get out there and don't be a jerk about it. Thank you so much. And until next time, we are the Comic Watchers, and this is our show.
Auf Wiedersehen.